On this season of the Leading with Audacious Confidence podcast, we share stories from corporate executives and tips from those who coach them to high performance on what it really takes to build and keep your confidence in this fast-paced, ever-changing world of business, and how they inspire others to lead with confidence. Be ready to take lots of notes because there's always some juicy nuggets coming your way. Welcome to this episode of Leading with Audacious Confidence. I'm your host, Alicia Khoury. Let me tell you, I know I always say that I'm excited about my guests, but listen, this woman is a powerhouse, and you have to stay for the whole thing and listen to her because after I read her bio, you're going to understand why. So Dr. Loubna is our guest, and she is a global keynote speaker, leadership scholar, and master certified coach. Her passion for leadership has positioned her training programs at the top 10 global list by Training Magazine. As a Civil War survivor, Lubna believes that magic happens when hope and humanity stand in the face of adversity. That just gives me chills. Prior to her 7 years of sleepless nights doing research on change and leadership while binging on Cuban and Turkish coffee, Lubna led the learning and development function for over 20 years. She has interviewed hundreds of leaders about their relationship with change. She knows without a doubt that we are so much more than our survival skills, and she's on a mission to prove it. Dr. Loubna is the co-founder and CEO of Mind Market, a resource and coaching center for organizations prioritizing cultures of brilliance over systems of unnecessary change and chaos. Lubna's dream is to support 100 orphans from West Africa through college and career transitions. Ooh, welcome to the show, Dr. Loubna.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for the intro. And
Listen,
I'm excited. I feel privileged and honored to be here.
Oh, I am absolutely privileged. Listen, we know each other through a coaching program. We both have the same our same business coach, and that's how we met. And our business coach, actually, I interviewed her on the first season of this show. So if you want to go back and look at Angelique Ruers talking about corporate consulting, you can go right back to that on the first season. I believe it was episode 3 in the first season. So you can check that out. But Dr. Loubna's work is really revolutionizing business and industry and cultures. So I want to go back first because in your bio, I saw something there about Civil War. So share with us a little bit about where you came from and how that shaped the woman that you are today.
Wow, you're taking me back to definitely the days of the Civil War. Alicia, I woke up to the hot end of a metal pressed into my forehead. I was 10 years old. Sierra Leone in West Africa was on the verge of a vicious civil war. And when you have conflict, unwelcome visitors usually step into your door place. So on that day, we lost our home, my childhood memories, and my special teddy bear. Oh. And I saw my teddy bear being suffocated in the hands of this young army man whose rifle was just bigger than his body.
Wow.
I fought for that teddy bear, but I couldn't get it. Change can happen suddenly. Mm-hmm. And other people's agenda really have no regard for what you hold dear. Wow. On that night in December, we had to walk to the jungle, and we were found by a tribe. The smell of barbecue was mesmerizing, Alicia. We were hungry, tired, exhausted. I don't know how we made it that long. And they were excited to see us still, because we come to find out they're cannibals. I'm not kidding, Alicia. You
What?
know, we were screaming for food, and they were probably also celebrating us with drums and welcoming us
Oh my goodness.
for food. But a young tribesman, Alicia, took it upon himself to save us. He walked us through a wilderness that we modern people could not survive. He would use hand gestures, we call it magic, and would blow dust to freeze horrific animals in the forest. And we made it. We made it to Freetown, where we were able to completely leave Sierra Leone. Never saw Sierra Leone again since that day. So I do believe in magic. And truly, magic is the phenomena of hope and humanity coming together in the face of adversity. But
Oh
that's
my
my
God.
first civil war.
That was your
That
first civil war. So it wasn't even the only civil war that you lived through.
was done. We actually, my parents moved to Nigeria, but I got so sick from malaria. They had to send me to my grandma in Lebanon. And war happened in Lebanon. What's different about the war in Lebanon is we went to school while bombs designated other streets
Oh my
and
gosh.
other neighborhoods. War became part
Of your
of our day-to-day
existence.
survival. Yes,
So is
exactly.
that, would you say what's happening in the Ukraine now is that life goes on while bombs are all around you
Resonating
and you
all
just,
around
it
you.
becomes a part of your life? Wow.
It becomes part of your life, and you realize that you only have today.
Yeah.
I survived today. Something happens when you recognize that other people are dying and you're not. You build so much resistance, resilience, and I think a much less fear of death than we believe to be.
Wow. And you survive for a purpose. Do you believe that you're here for a purpose then?
I certainly hope so. I certainly hope so. I bring it with me to every conversation. I bring it with me to every meeting. Because Alicia, humans are very adaptable, which is a great thing. But sometimes we need to be aware of what we're adapting to.
Wow. And so I want to bring this to the leadership work that you're doing today. Like, how did you bridge that gap from childhood and being in these situations where you have no leadership, you have no control over what's happening? You know, you're watching world leaders or leaders of tribes or other things like devastate other people's lives. So just, I'm just trying to imagine what was that thought process in you, even if it was, that says, you know what, I need to help people in leadership. I don't even know if that was a conscious thought or if it was just like because of the way you grew up that this is now where you kind of hung your hat on. What was your experience there?
You know, it took me a while to figure out why I was so passionate about leadership and why I wanted to make a change. It took me truly a while to understand what is it that, Lubna wanted. And it came to me a couple of years ago when I realized, how can I help leaders choose peace over war? We're very passionate and we have these strong debates about our politics and office politics and um, the war in Ukraine, the Russia, we have so much passion about it, but we don't choose peace in our own lives. So how can we start to choose peace over war in our everyday relationships with others? And I started by strongly working with leaders at the middle management and frontline managers. And I realized that it's like having a fish in a dirty pond. You take the fish out, you clean her out, make her look all clean in a beautiful water, but then the fish goes back to that dirty pond. And so I realized that, yes, I can do the work and it's temporary. How can I be more effective and more stronger in my voice? And it really starts at the top. because
Mm-hmm.
culture is created by top leadership. And sometimes some of the top leaders themselves will tell me, absolutely not. They do negate that they create the culture. We create the culture of the organization. So I started becoming more passionate about working with that group of people and helping them lead through dignity in the workplace. Choose peace, not war. There's a lot of turf wars and truly challenges because of our different styles. People
Mm-hmm.
have different styles. So we have a different map of the world. We see the world differently. Our language is different. And there's a lot of turf
Yeah.
and passionate people that see things totally differently from the others. And how can we, instead of falling into that rabbit hole, how can we find superpowers in our differences? How can we make those differences become what makes us better in our survival skills?
Wow. That is so powerful. And before we move completely into the work that you do with leaders, I want to ask one more question about your childhood and how you were able to find the confidence within yourself to work with senior leaders.
So I think once you go through war and adversity, I had to leave all this and come as a refugee to Canada. As a refugee, knowing no one, very vulnerable, I started to pick the pieces slowly and get in touch with who I am.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a while. And then from Montreal, I moved to the US. And I realized that no matter what adversity stands in our face, our mindset, how much we believe in ourselves, how much confidence we have in ourselves and
Mm-hmm.
those around us, it does become our greatest source of resilience.
Mm. Yeah.
So that that in itself became my trigger to work with leaders. It starts with one step at a time, and when I tell the clients it's one step at a time, they get very eager to
Listen,
want to
we're
know
we're
more.
impatient people. We want you to
Yes,
give
yes.
us the pill and change our lives in an instant,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Nobody wants one step at a time anymore.
Just get it done. Just get it
Get it
done.
done. Come on. Um, so you were telling me a story about, well, it's not a story, it's a real incident. You know, some people say story, it's like it's a made up thing, but about two of your clients in the same organization with basically this at the same level,
Mhm.
and how the differences between male and female as you're coaching them, how that mindset, as you talked about it, shows up so differently. And because you have such a long career of working with people, I'm sure you've seen these trends over and over again. So share how that difference shows up and all the research, as you talked about, hundreds and hundreds of clients that you've talked to, senior leaders. So I'm just going to keep it at that question because I tend to ask stacked questions. So I'm leaving it at that question. Tell us about those two situations, and then I'll ask a further question.
So I think stories that stick with us, Alicia, happen because we see it again and again and again, so they become more confined and clear. And one of the stories that I was mentioning to you is I worked in the same area, same function with two different senior VPs. One is the male, and our conversations were about how do I manage my team? How do I, you know, manage up? How do I create this $1 million project that I want to work on that is for me, for my team, and I want this beautiful conference room that's going to cost millions of dollars, but it's worth it for this and that and all the reasons. And was the level of conversation that I was having with him because he is living in the role of senior VP.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with another female, and I'm definitely not saying this is every female, but when confidence, right, is not where it should be, where your mindset is in the I'm a fraud type of person. This is not for me. I don't deserve this. I'm here by coincidence. When
Or
that
luck.
happens, how the
I'm here by luck.
conversation by
Right.
luck. Yes, yes, yes. So the conversation with her on our first coaching meeting was about, can you help me ask for a better chair for me, $1,500? Can you help me have the conversation with the same boss, my boss, about me needing a chair? And that was such a confining moment for me of thinking, whoa, not only does the mindset limit our progress in terms of day to day, it also limits how we show up
Mm-hmm.
to the people that are considering you for the next
The next
promotion.
level. Right.
Yes.
I was just about to ask that, because if I'm considering the two of them for the next level of promotion, and one is coming to me with all these big ideas about where they're headed and where the team is headed, and they're looking at launching this multi-million-dollar project to do XYZ for the company, and I have another leader over here afraid to ask for a chair that's $1,500 because they don't think they're worth a $1,500 chair. I mean, that's a huge difference. And kudos to the leader that brought you in, because they want them to up level, both of them, and
Yes.
they have a desire to see them succeed. And so it's really the work in recalibrating that mindset. And you said you've seen this time and again with female leaders. And so what do you think is sort of the foundation of something like that?
I think what's important for the listeners to know about this story is the fact that their manager knows how bright this woman is, how analytical and intense she can be, and knows that what's standing before her in the next level is her executive presence, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they define it into executive presence.
Mm-hmm.
And so recognizing that she is seen as very talented,
Mm-hmm. Well, to get
and
where she
yet,
is, she has to be.
exactly, exactly. And for her not to be able to see herself in any way or fashion, she's still a frontline manager in her mind.
Mm.
So as a
That
frontline manager, she was
self-image.
very effective.
Yeah.
Yes.
That
But she still
self-image
sees, yeah.
is huge. To get someone to shift their self-image, it's big. I know I'm constantly shifting my self-image. It's not a one and done situation. It's a
It's
constant
not.
evolution of your self-image. I believe it was Bob Proctor that talked about the self-image, and how in order to get to the next level, we have to see ourselves at the next level, and we really have to develop that self-image to get there. And that's, I know they call it executive presence, but there's so much more.
Yes, yes,
There's so much more
absolutely.
involved, and confidence
Executive
is a big,
buildup.
right, is a big part of that.
It
Building up
is,
your
it is.
confidence and your the way you see yourself.
And
Uh,
and
Go ahead.
Alicia, in this case, like the way you see yourself, what we're trying to tell ourselves that we don't believe it, right? So in this case, when you're trying to build yourself, and when you say, oh, the advice is imagine where you want to be, right? And then start saying you want to be there. It's really hard to do that. It's really hard to visualize that.
Which
So
is why you need a coach, I believe.
yes.
You need someone on the
Oh,
outside of you to shift the voices on the inside, because sometimes we could do it, but as Angelique always says, the sharpest knife can't carve its own handle. So you could do that for yourself to a point, but then you really need, because the only voice you're hearing is your own. And if you're wrong, you're going to be wrong, right? And
yes,
so you
absolutely.
need that outside person to help you shift those things that you can't shift on your own.
I have a great story for you, Alicia. So
Okay.
they shared my war story, and with war comes some packages, right? When
Mhm.
I first came to Miami, it took me back to Sierra Leone, West Africa, because all the houses, the grass, the palm trees, and most importantly, doors on the front level. I had forgotten that. In buildings, I didn't have any phobia. I realized I have a phobia from darkness when I came to Miami.
Ooh.
So in the evening, as the sun sets, my anxiety went up. The more it sets, the more the anxiety. I would call a friend in New York and ask her to be with me on the phone. And every single night, I would go to every room, open every closet, check out under every bed to make sure there's nobody in the house that would surprise me. I did that every day for 2 years.
Wow.
And then I stepped into coaching, and I went to this course in coaching, and I realized, oh, I could do this. I could do this. I just need to change my self-talk. So I contacted this coach who was a wonderful human being, Dr. Reynolds, and I asked for help. I went to his office and asked for help with my phobia. And I remember, because the check that I paid for that hour was as big as my check for the whole week pay was. The week pay was, but I went to see him because I realized he had the talent and the knowledge to help me shift myself. So when I went to him, he very simply asked me what happened, and I shared exactly what I just shared with you. And then he asked me, so what do you tell yourself? And I said, I'm not safe. I do not feel safe. I feel someone is in the house, and it's consistent, and it's torture for me. That I would feel safer being outside on the street than being in the house. So it was all self. So he told me, okay, you're going to go home, Lubna, and for 3 weeks, you're going to say, I'm safe. And I remember looking at him, I will not forget the moment. Like, what? He said, yes, you're going home. What are you talking about? Every cell of my body said, absolutely not. And he said, we're not talking to your conscious mind. We're talking to your unconscious mind. So I need you to go home and say, I am safe 100 times every single day. And let's meet in 3 weeks. Of course, I believed in coaching. I believed in the talent of this guy. So I went home and I did exactly what he told me. And I would say, safe, safe, safe. And my head would say, no, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. I'm safe. I'm safe. But I repeated it 100 times a day. 3 weeks later, I go back. Phobia is gone. I didn't realize it was gone until he asked me, so tell me, when was the last time you were scared at night? And it had gone. I did not even remember when it was gone. So self-talk. Yeah. Right? A simple coaching tool that we use.
Powerful. Yeah.
Powerful. Powerful. And it's
reprogramming
that
those unconscious beliefs. You have to reprogram those things.
You have this white paper full of words, of beliefs we have typed into it. And now we need a new brand new paper, blank slate, and start to type the message you want. So it does take time, and it does take a true belief that it works. Because so people say, yeah, right, it's a joke. It's not a joke. I've experienced it myself.
Yeah.
I had phobia from darkness, and it was gone in 3 weeks.
Yeah. Wow. And I want to also bring this into the workplace, because people bring their traumas and their whole selves into an office environment, into a work environment. They bring themselves. So you had that phobia of darkness. It could be something else. It could be anything else that they're bringing into the work environment with them. And they're triggered by something, and the boss doesn't know how to handle that. And so what ends up happening is they're labeled as something else. They're labeled as unproductive, or even the supervisor or the boss starts thinking that something's wrong with them because this person keeps acting up. And so it becomes a cycle of nobody really understanding what's going on. And that's why you need an outside consultant. That's why it's important to have a coach or a consultant that's not in the business with you, to see things that are happening that you're not seeing. because we all filter things through our own, we all have our own filter, our own beliefs, like you said, the writing on that paper of how things should be, of how life should be, of how people should operate, right? And when someone
Yes.
does not operate in that way, we don't know how to handle that. And so that's why an outside coach with the tools and the tips and the training and the understanding of what's happening is so vital for organizations to have. I believe coaching is essential to the success of a business. It is essential.
Oh, 100%. Very, very simple. 40% of managers report spending, or should I say wasting, their time on unproductive conflict. 40% of your time as a manager is spent managing unproductive conflict, because productive conflict is great.
Yeah.
Unproductive, this is a waste of money. Just think about the manager's salary, and and think how many managers you have in an organization, and that's the amount of waste you have when we do not address unproductive conflicts. We come with our stories, and when we don't have enough information, Alicia, which is another big gap, when we do not have enough information, our brain tends to fill the gap.
In the gaps. Yes.
Yes. So what happens is, in general, we're not spending enough time sharing the full story. We get stories half done, and then we drop them to the next level. They become even less than half done. And then we create stories that are easy for our brain to manage. They don't care about me. They're playing me. I don't trust them. They don't tell me the truth.
Right.
They're all over the place. When you feel overwhelmed, your people feel overwhelmed as well.
That's
And when
huge.
it comes to, yes, and when it comes
That's
to change, 50 to 70% of change initiatives fail. And guess what, Alicia? They fail during launch, just like plane. Most plane crashes happen during launch. Same thing with change. And the reason for that is, it's not that managers don't want change. It's not that our people do not want change. People do not resist change. On the contrary, they anticipate it. They know it's coming. What they resist is the lack of regard for their own personal experiences with change. The more we can focus on the human side of your team, the more you can focus on the human side of the team, the better is the process side. We're heavy into process in organizations, and we forget the dynamics you just mentioned. We have our own baggage.
Yes.
Each and every one of us has a different reaction to change.
And without context, especially when there's change without context, and you're just asking people or telling people to do something, again, their brain will fill in the gap. And the gap is usually something negative towards me,
Absolutely. And what I see, like the phenomena that I see, and I used it lately in my course at Barry University, is superficial compliance. I see a lot of superficial compliance at work, meaning when you start to see change coming down with no regard to what I know, what my experience is, no regard to my expertise. So we pay thousands of dollars more to get the top performer in the organization, but yet we don't ask them for advice or ask for their voice when it comes to change. We build superficial compliance. Superficial compliance means in very simple terms, I'm going to pretend I'm okay. I'm going to pretend and go with the flow. And when superficial compliance happens, we see three results. And I see that consistently, Alicia, in organizations. One, we fight. So you see a lot of silos, people hoarding information, not sharing, and people competing with each other. So we compete in the same organization. That is what a big unproductive conflict that is, right?
That's such
Absolutely.
a waste.
That's one. We fight. The second one is we pretend. We pretend to be okay when we're not. The term quiet quitting came up some time ago, and it's sort of that we pretend, we mask ourselves with this frozen look of, yes, I'm okay here, but I stopped giving you. I do my minimum
I'm not giving you my
possible.
best. Yep.
I'm not going to give you my best anymore because you don't care about me. And the third one
Exactly.
is they quit. They just
Mhm.
quit. And when we hear people say, oh my God, she's quitting? What? She was so good. She was so happy. What happened? That's what happened. They freeze and they quietly start looking for jobs and they leave. They have option. But guess what, Alicia? When they come to you, they would say something like, oh, my husband is moving out of town.
Yeah, they'll
So
give you
they
an
give
excuse.
you all the
A
reasons.
completely different excuse than what really is happening.
Yeah,
And
because if we don't like conflict, we don't like conflict.
right.
And I'm not going to upset my boss. I love my boss. I'm just leaving. I'm done.
Yeah.
Right. So
I
this
think
is,
I quiet quit when I years ago, like my first real job was I was a flight attendant, and there was a point, I mean, I had only done the job I was only going to do it temporarily to save money to go to college. So I was already only temporarily going to be there, but I left sooner than I was planning to leave. And I think that whole thing about they don't really care about me. Our managers just really didn't care. Like we would ask for things that I need, like a simple thing, like I wanted to go vote. It was the first time I would have gotten to vote in my life. I was 18 years old. It was election time. And my manager said, no, she was not going to give me time to go vote.
wow.
And yet the captain of the flight that I had to go do, he said, I wish I had known that, because he held up the whole flight to let all the pilots go vote. He said, no, that's your constitutional right. You could go vote. But she told me, nope, I had to be there. So we sat there and waited an hour for the pilots to show up because their union stood up for them. Right?
Wow.
Well, I just felt like they don't really care about us. They don't care.
Mhm.
So yeah, I left before it was time, and I felt like, and I started working, even though I loved doing what I did. There was this voice behind that kept saying,
Exactly. That
what are they going to
starts.
do to me? What are they going to do to me? Fire? I already quit. I'm already
Yeah,
out of here.
yeah, yeah.
So
Our brains tend to fill the gap,
yeah.
right? When we have an untold story, we start to add the story to it. And by the way, Alicia, that's how our brain works. We do not like incomplete stories. This is why Netflix is so good at this and leaves you with an
Leave the
end that
cliffhanger.
has,
Leave the
there you
cliffhanger.
go. Yeah. And they do it for that purpose. Our brain does not like it. Our brain keeps
Yeah,
continuing to
it
think
keeps
about it until we
ruminating
reach. It
until we get
does.
another
It
conclusion.
does.
Yeah.
It
I
does.
mean,
So
that
so going
happens so
back to
often.
organizations, yeah, absolutely. Going back to organizations, if we can spend more time understanding differences, if we can spend more time really understanding the unique superpowers that each of us has, because
Mhm.
that person that is a trigger to you might be your best compliment actually when it comes to work. Because what their preferences might be are different from yours, and that's exactly what complements
And
your
that's
style.
what you
So,
need. Mhm.
yes, your motivators, your stressors, understanding that and truly captivating yourself and really focusing, honing in on your strength, right?
Yeah.
Versus ignoring what the other person's strength are. Oh,
That's
they're
why
not
I love
looking.
Colby. That's why I love Colby, and
Yes,
I love doing that work within organizations to help them really identify their strengths and see where those potential for conflict already
arises.
exists,
Yes,
and how can we move past that to actually working together, because you do need each other. We need diversity of strengths in an organization to work. So yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So, and that takes, trust, it takes dialogue. I spoke to a leader last week, and his biggest fear was the conversation becoming messy. And, so that's the mindset, right?
Mhm.
Like that I have, believing that when it gets messy, I'm actually torturing people. And to actually, and to realize that, can we move beyond the messy? So it becomes messy, and then what happens? And what if it's for the best of the team for it to be just a little bit messy for a
Mhm.
while? And
Yeah.
sometimes it's just that, because when we start, it can be messy.
But you
And as a
have to
person
work
from
through the mess.
outside, yes,
You have to
and someone
walk
from
through the cannibal
outside,
camp. You have to walk
Yes,
through the camp of the
and
cannibals.
survive it.
You had to survive it to get
Right?
to the other
And
side.
understanding it's part of the process, right?
Mhm.
Chaos is part of the process. But then as an outside person, I don't have the day-to-day
You're
maze
not
or
emotionally attached to it
fear. I'm
too.
not emotionally attached. I can see through that and help them walk the pathways to better relationship and magnifying those relationships so they become productive to the organization, pro work, not against work, because we
Hmm.
see competition, people competing against each other, and
In
I'm
the
like, you're
same,
paid by the same
the
organization
same
by the
organization's
same
paid, right?
person.
Why are you
I
holding on
just
to info? Yeah. You're like, what do they say, drinking poison and hope somebody else dies. You're really, you're really like poisoning the organization from growing when you do things like that, and you're not seeing it because you're in your own bubble of trying to protect yourself and trying to
yes,
be right. Like, this is
you're
mine.
afraid. You're
Yeah, your
afraid.
fear is taking
Fear
over.
is a
Oh my
big,
gosh,
big driver.
Lubna, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. Um, but I wanted to, I know you had a list of questions here that I didn't even look at, not even once.
No worries, no worries at all. No worries at all.
But
Um,
I do, I did want to ask you, all right, this is the last question I'm going to ask you, and then I want to do our rapid fire questions. So, how can leaders really understand that they're having a situation with another leader and they need to bring someone like you in to help? Like, what are some of those times that they should call on you or see what's going on? How could they recognize that?
I think that the number one thing they see is their team not getting results. So you
Mhm.
have a group of brilliant people in the room, and yet they're not getting results. That's, that you're not happy with what's coming out for you on a quarterly basis, on a monthly basis. The results are just not there. And the second one is when you see too much silence in the room. Uh, Silence is a dangerous path. When everyone is quiet in the room, leaders must question what's going on.
Mm.
And it's not that everybody is with you and happy and excited about you. There's something going on when we don't have some type of back and forth questioning your decisions and asking questions and really coming to an in-depth agreement together.
There's an
So that
elephant that
tells
nobody's
me,
addressing.
yes, and there's a superficial compliance happening that may lead you for people fighting, resisting, or quitting.
Oh, quiet,
The
right.
third one, quite quitting. And the third one is when you truly have lost a few good team members from a certain department or a certain area, and these were regrettable loss for you.
Mm.
I think it's important to come back and create some kind of a storyboard to see what's going on. So when I come in, the first thing I do is a cultural assessment of that team or whatever group you decide, and really understanding, doing interviews and understanding what is going on behind the scenes. What
Mm.
are the few turf issues that are causing this superficial compliance? And then from there, create a dialogue with the leader to say, this is what's happening. Let's share what's going on with everyone openly. And then let's have our own team retreat to go back,
Hmm.
create a new agreement for how to be a high potential team.
Wow. All right. So that is so that's powerful, because a lot of times, again, we're filling in stories, so we're not even being observant to see that when you have a team meeting and nobody's talking and it's silence and you're like, okay, well, let's just go ahead, let's go move on. It's like, no,
Oh,
something else is
yes.
happening here, because nobody is actually pushing back. There's no discussion, there's no um so it's about really stopping and evaluating the
What's going on?
situation.
Be present.
Be
I
present.
tell,
Yes.
and we're
And I
so
just,
busy, right? I mean, we're so busy. When we're looking forward, it's really, really hard to see the cracks on the floor. because
Yeah.
I'm looking forward and, to stopping just sometimes and observing what's going on. I'm working with a CEO right now, Alicia, who for months and months and months has been telling the team what to do
Hmm.
because he sees the team not capable of thinking, of organizing, of planning. And he's giving them all the best ideas and move forward. And there's a rift, move forward and there's a rift. And he's very frustrated and he wants to get rid of everyone. And I'm like, hold
Yeah,
on,
that's where they get to.
let's find
Let's fire
out.
everybody.
Let's find out what is going on. There's a human, right? The lack of regard to the human side of change is the biggest resistance to
Mm.
change. Let's understand what's going on, right? And we can, again, Alicia, human beings are very adaptable, which is
Yeah.
a truly useful quality. Sometimes we just need to stop and question, what are we adapting to?
Mm.
Because teams can be silent for a long time.
Yeah. Wow. All right. On that note, we're going to jump into our rapid fire. And so,
Uh-oh, I didn't even know what that is, but go ahead. Yes.
listen, I'm just going to ask you these questions and you just answer whatever comes to your mind first. Okay.
Is it one
So,
word, one sentence? Is there any
no,
rules?
it's
Nothing?
you can explain if you like, but not like a 10-minute explanation.
All right.
It's like short sentence.
Fire. Okay.
So first of all, what's the biggest leadership mistake that you ever made yourself or was a victim of?
Making assumptions.
Mm.
Making assumptions is a huge, huge one. Telling the story that we think is the right one instead of really asking.
Mm. Okay. Yes. Yes. Because what the confused mind does nothing. And so if we just assume and we're going off of that assumption, we could be heading into a world of problems. So what is the best leadership advice you've ever received that you still implement today?
Stay quiet. Give them the respect of space. And now I say the grace of space.
Mm.
It was um, it was a very, very amazing CEO that is no longer with us. And his advice was just be quiet.
But different than the quiet that's in the room.
Yes, allow them to speak in the room.
Allow them to
So,
speak in the
so I
room.
went to
Right.
him and I said, "What's the one advice you're gonna give me?" Because he chose me to become the senior leader for the learning and development team. And I said, "What's one advice that you would give me based on your 55 years
Wow.
of leading?" And he said, "Stay quiet.
Mm.
As the leader, stay quiet so your team can actually speak and feel heard."
Yeah, that's so important. It's so
It
important to
is.
feel like you're seen and you're heard and you're valued. It's so important. All right. What's the most Jedi audacious leadership move you ever made that was so out of the box, but it worked?
This is going to be funny, but it's a true story. I went to a childcare once and asked the kids what to do about a problem I had. And they gave me truly the best idea in the world.
I
And I
love
did it. And it worked. And so I brought toys with me to the conference room. And it was a problem that we had for a while. And I put the toys just that the kids told me to do and had them play Play-Doh to come up with a solution. And we did.
Nice. I use puzzles. I use children's puzzles.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It just takes you out of your, the title, the
Yeah.
job.
I
It
have
was
them
such a
use
beautiful
children's
moment.
puzzles. Yeah.
I
I
sat
think
down on the
bringing
floor with
play,
these kids. Yes.
helping them remind themselves that they're so innovative and creative, and bringing play into a training. People might look down and say that's kind of childish and ridiculous, but it brings back that sense of wonder and joy and having fun and competing on a different level, because now you're not competing like, I'm holding back, but you're actually having fun competing
Yeah,
again.
just
So
letting go and having the intelligence in the room is in the room. It's not in me, right? The intelligence is in the
right.
room. There's so much intelligence in the room. Allow it to happen. And Alicia, the funny part about that was there was one girl, she's hilarious. I remember she was sitting in that room and she said, "Eat marshmallows." And I looked at her, I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "When I'm really stressed, I share with a friend a marshmallow and we both eat marshmallows. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to bring for each one of them a marshmallow.
Marshmallows. Nice.
Like, eat marshmallows.
That is awesome. I love that. That is pretty Jedi. And then, okay, if you were a castaway on a deserted island and you can only have 3 things wash up on shore or airdrop from a plane, what 3 things would you want washed up?
Ooh,
And one cannot be a phone, a cell phone.
cannot be a cell phone. That is a great question. I think I would love a match. I'd like them to bring me a match, a mirror, and maybe a very loud magnifying voice I can ask for help
A
somewhere.
microphone. All right. So you can yell for help.
You can yell for help. Sing it through, will yell for help, yes.
Yeah.
How about you, Alicia?
What would I bring with me? Oh, you know what? I don't know if we have time for this. I used to have an answer if anybody ever asked me, and now I forgot what my answer was. I know for sure something to create fire with. So a flint or something to create fire with. Something to cut. So something sharp enough that can cut. And then my Bible. Because my Bible gives me hope. Right?
Awesome.
Hope to be rescued. I'm praying.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. So something to keep me surviving while I'm there, but then my Bible to keep me encouraged. You know, duct tape is another great thing to have because you could use duct tape everywhere to build a raft.
Bug spray. I'm scared of
Bug
bugs.
spray, right? There's so many things that we could bring. I should say a list of 10 things, but you have 3. So
yeah.
Who's someone that inspires you every day?
My dad. He passed away in November, but he's a daily inspiration. This guy could make fun of any adversity, anything. Nothing bad comes his way that he doesn't make fun of.
Wow.
He's my inspiration. He's definitely
because he took
funniest person.
Took you kids through Civil War, jungles, all kinds of adversity, and I'm sure that sense of humor was something that helped keep you guys sane.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, nothing could stop him from laughing, making jokes, and making pranks. He loved pranks.
That's probably why you have so much light inside of you too. So much fun.
He reminds me, don't let the child in there. Don't get don't get lost. Keep the child, keep the inner child.
I love that.
Stay connected.
All right, I got 2 more. One is if you could choose one person, real or fictional, dead or alive, past or present, that you can sit and break bread with, who would that be?
It would be a historical Middle Eastern figure called Imam Ali. He's such a philosopher, way ahead of his time. That was at a time when ignorance was overwhelming Asia. I would love to have a conversation with him. Nice. Bring him back.
Yeah. And finally, what book are you reading now? Or you can give me your top 3 favorite titles.
The book that I'm reading right now, and I'm reading it for the 10th time, is The 4 Agreements.
Oh, love it.
I read it every year.
Here.
One of my favorite books. And I'm forcing my kids, my 2 girls now, to read it and not to take things, personal, or to be impeccable with your word. Right. So I use it in my Emerging Leader program. I facilitate the program for 9 months in different organizations, and it's part of the books that I share. And every time I give it for them to read, I read it again. And every time there's a story, there is something that just sparks my interest and creates such a beautiful, pathway for me. So yes, I love that book.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. How can people reach you, Lubna?
Well, chatwithlubna.com is an easy one, and mindmarket.org, but lubna@mindmarket.org. And I'm be delighted to have a conversation with anyone listening. Thank you,
Excellent.
Alicia.
Well, thank you, Dr. Lubna. And we need to go have lunch together sometime since we're in the same city.
Yes. Yes,
To
we
go sit
must.
down and we need to sit down and break bread together.
I would love that. I would love that. Thank you for a lovely time.
You're welcome. So, did I not tell you that this was going to be powerful? And I hope you took notes. I hope you reach out to Dr. Lubna. If you are a leader in an organization and you're listening to this, please reach out to her. She is magnificent and really does help your organization work through change. And with that, I want to encourage you to lead yourself, lead your teams, and lead your organization with audacious confidence. Until next time, this is Alicia with Leading with Audacious Confidence. Mwah. Bye, everybody.